Hello and good great evening on 10:35 Eastern Daylight Nighttime. Let's see. Today is oh, this thing always does this. Okay, doke. Sorry. It is the 26th of December, 2017, and my glasses are already bothering me. I want to say I hope everyone had an absolutely wonderful Christmas holiday. Mine was very quiet. I watched a couple of movies on Netflix when Roku would work. Um, that's another story in itself. I wish to bring you humor and laughter while discussing things around the garden and things that are going on in the world in general. A couple of days ago, I did a I couldn't believe I was on for 4 hours, but anyway, um, for any of you who are new to this here face right here, my name is David Null. I'm 65 years old. My birthday was 9/24 of 1952, and I am a mechanical engineer, a 3D draftsperson, carpenter, plumber, not licensed any longer. And I never was a journeyman plumber. However, I've plumbed a bunch of houses and fixed a bunch, and occasionally still do. Um, I've worked in as an electrician's helper, actually, because I didn't have the license. But my work has been done over many, 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 many years. My hobbies include number one, astronomy. And if I hadn't had a bad car accident back in the early 1970s, I was already in school to become an astronomer. And then the traumatic brain injury that I had knocked that out. So, but I have watched the stars and the skies both day and night um, from the time I was 9, 10, 11 years old as a Cub Scout, Boy Scout, and when we went camping and that type of thing. And you might ask, well, what the heck are you giving all this stuff for? It's because there are a lot of people who are like, well, David knows, so who are you? Well, I've got a long history of a lot of things, and I've been, other people have called me a jack of all trades. That's because I could do all kinds of different things. I've also worked in community theater. I have acted in over 85 different plays in my long career since I started in high school. Actually, in the about 1968, I started doing a theater type device. I'm not bragging, but I have won a lot of awards in public speaking. In fact, in 1989, I believe it was, I was the gold medal winner for the VICA competition in the state of Georgia, and I went to nationals as an extemporaneous speaker. So, in other words, they give you a topic written on a piece of paper. You don't know what it is till you get there, and they give you 3 to 5 minutes to prepare. And then you have, if you don't go for 3 minutes, you get points off, and then and if you go over 5 minutes, well, that's that. Okay, so that's who I am. I've got a long history of a lot of things. Now, homesteading. I've been here on this homestead now for 35 years down here in South Georgia. And I literally started out in a travel camper and no water down here, no toilet, no nothing. I mean, we started homesteading with zero. And I've got pictures that I've had issues with YouTube. So one of these tonight is sort of an update in that I had to thoroughly erase everything with my YouTube channel because it refused to allow me to go live or be able to share any pages or anything. And it seems that I possess in here and other places information that some folks would not like to hear. Contamination of the soil around here, what some of the farming industry is doing to our streams and wildlife around here down in South Georgia. And it's happening all over, but I don't live all over. I live here in South Georgia. And so with that said, I wanted to make sure that I could do this here video stream. And I'll check it out. I don't have a way to monitor it at the moment. Boy, YouTube and the internet sure has been rough on me. But like I said, I've got topics and things of interest that the mainstream folks just don't want you to hear about. I mean, you know, the coming ascension, the galactic, well, just everything galactic. All right, we'll just go with it like that. And so, one of the things that I want to discuss right now is that I see everybody across the board, especially in America. Oh my gosh, what greedy people we are. I mean, yeah, you know, I knew we were kind of bad, but so when folks start talking about, oh, what if the lights go out for 2 weeks? Well, this last year, I've had the lights go out longer and more frequent than I have in 25 years here on this property. Now, it's not because of the REA, heavens no. It's because of the bad storms we had. And I mean, like on January 3rd last year, we had a tornado go through here and rip down some absolutely, I'm talking 3 people can't put their arms around oak trees. They're gone. Every time I go by them, I just cry. I mean, because I love my trees, you know. I live on 18.5 acres down here in southwest Georgia. I'm north of Thomasville and southwest of Moultrie. And I live in a little section down here on the Little Ocklawackney River. Now, one of the things that I'm trying to, I want to bring out, in the past, all I could do was complain about things. And I had no answers, no suggestions. All I could do was complain. And so in my spiritual journey, I've learned here very recently, and I mean within the last year, 6 months, a couple of things I just got slapped around about in the last couple of weeks, okay? Spiritually, you know, like, hey, you know, what's wrong with us as a society? Well, we started calling each other names and meaning it. You know, when I was growing up, I could hear the older folks talking about politics and things, and politics is always kind of like, what are these folks talking about, and why vote this guy, why do that thing, what goes this, and why do that, and what does this have to do with money and earning and cows and the whole 9 yards, right? So I started listening in, and I remember them saying, well, you know, that dirty SOB, he's a kike, or he's a dago, meaning I think I meant Italian, or a mix, or a wop. A wop was Italian. What's a dago? So, well, but see, back there, yeah, and they'd say something like, oh, that damn dago, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And in a way, it was almost not necessarily that they were calling him a name. It's just that John Doe, the dago, was, this was his opinion. And it was sort of like, okay, so do all dagos think this way? Or do all wops? Or do all... See, and we don't even use those terms now. Go figure, you know. You still can't use the N word, whoa, Niger. Now, speaking of Niger, actually, it was Angola. This is just a little tidbit of news for today. I'm sorry, I didn't know Angola had a rocket. I mean, Angola, you think of Angola and way back, you know, you think machetes, killing people, mass murders, genocide, Angola. Oh man, what was his name? I think they used to claim that this guy ate people way back, Angola, way back, 25 years. Ooh, Angola bad. Angola's got a spaceport. They're going to send up their first. I'm sorry. It's just hard for me to understand that these folks went from. Oh, golly, I hate to use this word, but see, this is something that they used to say all the time. Ooh, look at that jungle bunny, meaning a black person or a N word, or, you know, but anyway, and I mean this not in a derogatory way. Gosh, But I mean, they went from running through the jungle with spears and stuff and, maybe knowing about the rest of the world to how in the heck do they have a space station, and how in the heck does the country of Angola have a space program? I mean, I'm like, uh, most of the people still live with dirt floors and huts, but they got a rocket and they got a satellite, and that don't make no sense. But anyway, I digress. So I'm here to talk about gardening and things, and what is the value of money? This is just not like a hard subject here. But I see people just going absolutely nuts. Like, oh, if the economy goes, I need something to protect me and my investment. Now, I need silver, I need gold, I need Bitcoin, I need something, But nobody's talking about, well, if the economy goes down, how am I going to get fed? The grocery stores are all empty. Answer? Nobody's speaking about gardens hardly. I mean, us gardeners are, and people in homesteads are, but the mainstream folks are like, well, you better have some gold, and you better have some silver laying around, and you better have a little extra gas, and you better have a home generator. But do you have any food growing? Do you have any seeds to start a garden? Do you know what the most important thing right now on this earth is? To protect yourself? Food. And I don't mean from a can. I don't mean from an MRE, a meals to eat, No, I'm talking about, can you grow it? Because once you eat them MREs, gone. What are you going to eat tomorrow? Do you have to plan for each day? Now, I also want to give a little bit of tip now. As I'm 65 years old, I have a lot of time in the woods. In fact, 10 steps out my backyard, you're in the woods. And it's woods for 3/4 of a mile until you run across, well, I'm sorry, it's a 1/4 mile to the river. And it's another 1/2 mile to the church through nothing but briars and brambles and you name it. Can't get through. So I live in the woods. And when it rains normally, it's a swamp, which is wonderful. However, it hasn't been swampy in 2 years. 2 years there has not been sufficient enough rain here. Thank God I have barrels, drums, and large containers for rainwater, because otherwise I would not have been able to survive here. I've dug my own well. It's about a 3.5 foot roundish sort of hole in the ground, right through the red Georgia clay and down into the white Georgia clay. And I've had water. There's water down there. We just not have had sufficient enough rain. I mean, in the entire year of 2017, I got more rain in the last 2 weeks than I did for 6 months. And the last good rain we had was back in June. We've had an inch here, an inch there, but when it's so dry, an inch of rain just doesn't even barely, hit the top. So what I'm trying to do with my garden now, because water is such a premium, I can't just go to the water hose and turn it on because my well is so dry because of the drought, okay? So, but I do have water stored. And every time I see a rainstorm coming, I look for empty containers. I've got empty 55-gallon drums, and I'm placing them in certain places on my property, so where they're downhill from my my eaves. However, I don't want to put them too far downhill because then I got to tote the water back up. Everything that I think of in terms of no electricity. However, no electricity means for some reason the power has been shut off. I don't mean for whatever reason. I mean, like I said earlier in this broadcast, that we've had some bad storms this year in 2017, and I was out of electricity for 4 days down here. Stuff in the refrigerator went bad, stuff in the freezer went bad, and everybody's like, well, why don't you have a generator? I couldn't have run a generator for 4 days. Now, what I do have is a lot of 12 volt and 24 volt things that I'm working on. I've got an old refrigerator that came out of a travel trailer, and it's one of those you can use gas or electricity on. Now, the bad news is for some reason it's lost its charge and it doesn't work. It's beautiful, but they want $300 to work on it. Anyway, so my suggestion to people who are on a homestead, if you want to go to solar, I suggest you don't try to go solar and go to where you want to generate 110 to 240 volts. If you can't take your clothes outside and hang them on a line, you don't need a dryer. Sorry. If you want a homestead, you're going to hang your clothes on the fence in the garden, okay, because it's there, you know, and you don't have to string another line. The water that you use, you know, from my washing machine, it doesn't go into a septic tank. No, it goes into a gray water tank that's separate from the septic tank. And in that way, I can use my gray water if I don't have enough rainwater or the well's going dry. I can use it to water my plants in the garden and things. So I can get along, you know. But the way current things are, you know, everything goes into a septic tank or it all goes into the sewer system, never to be seen again. And it never gets treated properly anyway at the treatment plant, but that's a way nother story. I've known a bunch of people over the years that worked in wastewater and sewer treatment plants and that type of thing on an industrial scale. I used to do drawings for these things. So I am aware of different types of sewage treatment plants. So now, here on the homestead, I've been here for 35 years. And the foundation that I put down, the concrete that I laid, I've got very few cracks. Now, there's a Taco Bell that they built in the local town up here, and in less than 2 years, they had major foundation cracks in the walls. My house has been here I've been here on the property for 35 years. I built my house in sections and am still working on it, actually, because termites got in it and chewed up half my house. Had to go back in and redo it. But anyway, so I use old barn wood when I can afford it. When I did have a good job as a mechanical engineer, I did buy new wood. I bought all new pressure treated so that the termites couldn't eat it, because they love this old barn wood. My house is on the ground. In fact, for about 10 years, I had a carpet in here where I'm sitting now in my living room. And a friend of mine was like, I made a comment. I said, you know, one of these days I'm going to have enough money. I'm going to pour this. I'm going to pour this floor and put real concrete in here. And she looked at me and she goes, what do you mean a real floor? She's beating on the floor and stuff like that. And I said, well, if you pull back the 2 layers of carpets that I had laid on the ground, actually my floor was red Georgia clay that I graded, sanded, put out, and a couple little lumps in it. But if they were too bad, I'd pull the carpet back and smooth them out and put the carpet back down. Once I got the floor relatively smooth, it was fine. Nobody knew that I didn't have a real concrete floor. I literally lived on the dirt. Now, you can do that, but, you know, you got to be out somewhere, or, you know, you can't be around where these stupid building codes are. Now, to the building code. I'm not saying you should build something that's so flimsy that's going to get blowed over. No, I am not into that. I'm a carpenter and engineer, and the one thing I do want to say is you must engineer your structures strong enough to withstand a 25, 30 mile an hour wind without just falling over, you know. My house has been through 2 tornadoes straight over the top of the house and destroyed my 2 times. Once in November, Hurricane Kate, way back in the 80s, destroyed this whole place, just ripped it to shreds for about 2 weeks. You couldn't get anything. Couldn't get out, couldn't get in. It was horrible. And it was cold. And that hurricane destroyed this guy's shed. Tornado. And in January of this year, it destroyed his new barn, and they just put up another one. So 2 new barns because of tornadoes in 25 years or so of living here. Well, actually, it'd be longer than that if it was in the 80s. But anyway, I digress. So to the gardening. So what I need to do, and what I have found out, is that with the changes in the sun, with the changes in our atmosphere, because I went outside earlier today and it was just a beautiful blue sky. I came in the house to get a camera and I was going to walk around the house and do a little video thing and try to upload it later on, right? Okay, this is what I'm in the process of, and this is how crappy it looks, but I'm taking pictures now because hopefully by spring I will have all these issues straightened out and the place will look a lot nicer. Now, am I trying to be in Better Homes and Gardening? No, but I'm trying to get the crap out of my yard. I was disabled for 5 years and unable to walk, talk, speak, whatever. And I'm healing myself. I have healed myself. I'm still on the mend. And so things just went to crud around here. So it's taken me this last year to get my strength back. I get back on my bicycle and just ride it back and forth across the yard to get my strength up. I mean, I couldn't walk out to get my mail. Of course, it's a quarter mile up the hill for me, but I used to walk it every day, and I couldn't make it to the driveway hardly, which is about 150 feet from here. I just couldn't do it. Out of breath, tired. I mean, just boom. So now I'm able to work around the garden. I'm able to do certain things. You know, I can now climb a ladder again, not too high. I live by myself. I don't have anybody to check for me. No neighbors nearby. So something happens to me, that's just it. I've repaired myself from serious cuts. I've almost bled to death. I've had I got hit and a hammer fell off of a second story and hit me in the head, and I was bleeding everywhere. I've pulled fish hooks out of my eyes by myself. You got to be a survivor. If you're on a homestead, there are things you're just going to have to make do with. If you make the commitment to say, I'm going to homestead, you got to do it. If something happens and there's a critter out there trying to get in my chickens, I got to run out there and chase him off. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and colder than whatever and raining, if there's a bobcat out there trying to get in my chicken pen, I got to get that puppy out. Well, I got to get that cat out of there. And yeah, we used to have a bunch of bobcats, big, look like mountain lion bobcats, scared the crap out of you mountain lion bobcats. And they will rip through some chicken pen stuff in a heartbeat if they're hungry and want a chicken. That's just all there is to it. And possums, I didn't know that a possum would break in and eat a chicken. A possum will eat a chicken. I know they steal eggs, but I didn't know that they would eat live chickens. They do. They'll kill them. I know I lost 5 chickens just this last year to one dang possum. I finally got him. He got a dead puppy now, but I digress. Now, so one of the things like living down here in the woods, now they made me a felon, so I'm not supposed to have a firearm, but I do have a very good Benjamin 392 pump 22 pellet rifle, and it will take down small game. And if somebody was trying to hurt you, if you hit them in the face or some extremity, that it's going to stop them. Okay. Now, it might not kill them and do that kind of thing, but if somebody is trying to hurt you, and I found out another little trick off of the subject of gardening kind of thing it's not really, because you gotta be able to protect your garden. You got to protect your property. I mean, I've got 12 chickens out there, and if I hear a bunch of squawking and stuff, I got to go out there. You know, I got to check out who's trying to get in my pen, because then, my chickens are my livelihood. Right now, I got 5 dozen eggs that I could barter with for somebody else. Now, if somebody is hungry and you want to barter for something, or somebody says, well, I got some gold coins. I'll trade you for them eggs. I can't eat a gold coin. I can't eat a silver coin. I can't eat metal. I've tried. And, that's where iron comes from. You go over and lick a rusty bumper. But that's what we were told years ago, but it's true. An iron tablet is a rusty bumper. Go figure, right? Iron is iron. It's not something special in a pill. It's just in it. So, but anyway, with the Benjamin rifles, I found out that with pellet guns, that if you take a small amount of like mentholatum or camphor oil, or something like for your chest for a cold in the wintertime, right? If you put a smidgen of that on the inside of the pellet, where the air hits it. Because of the compression and the air, the oil, the small amount of oil that's in that camphor oil or mentholatum, other people have used some other things too, but what it does, the pressure acts like a diesel engine, because a diesel engine doesn't fire normally. It fires off of pressure, okay? And it's like 3 times the pressure of a normal engine. But anyway, by compressing the air in an air gun, you achieve a similar situation as you would with a diesel engine. So when you fire the pistol or the air gun, it also rather ignites the oil that's in the camphor oil that's in the back of the pellet. And it sounds like a real 22 going off. I was like, holy mackerel. And it also increases the velocity of the pellet by as much as it depends on the pellet, depends on the gun, depends on how much stuff you put in it, depends on how many pumps. This guy was using about 8 pumps standard, okay, with a standard Benjamin 392. He might have done a little tweaking to it, but he was getting about 700 feet per second. Yeah, roughly. And he started adding the oil to it and started shooting, and he was getting 9 and a couple of times over 1,000 feet per second. So he almost, let's see, by 1/3. So he increased his velocity of that pellet by 1/3. So from 700 feet per second to 900 feet per second, that's 200 feet more. And sometimes, like I said, it almost jumped to 1,000 feet per second. So that's some killing power right there. So you got to be able to protect your garden. I suggest you try to have some type of a fence around your place. Well, over the years, I've collected fence, and I finally this year have my entire garden fenced. It's not done yet, but it's fenced. I busted my post hole diggers again with new handles less than a year old. Anyway, they just don't make things the way they used to. So now with my garden, I found out that I'm going to have to do hydroponics. I have to, because I can't rely on the rainwater any longer. I mean, for the last 2 years, serious drought. I mean, I haven't been able to take a real, honest to God, turn on the water, shower in a year. Well, since June. Now I can take a, spit shower, Navy shower. I can do all kinds. I have to go out and get the water and bring it in, Now I do have a hot water heater, and that it's electric. I heat it up, get my hot water, take my bath, take my shower. But as far as being able to just stand under the shower, hasn't happened since June. And that was just a short period because we were already in a drought from the year before, 2016. 2015 had a medium amount of rain. So in the last 3 years, especially, I've spent more time once I get my garden going, and we get a decent rain in the spring, looks pretty good, and then all of a sudden, 0 rain. So I got a 1/4 acre garden and no water. I have to carry the water. So I'm in the process of trying to I don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting too old. It takes too long to water all these plants once you get them in. And then you got to fight with the heat and the this or that and the other thing. So with all the things that I know of all the engineering, Mr. Dave's fixing to go to some hydroponics. Well, they don't float in the water. What I have tried, and it was sort of successful this year. I just need to set it up better. You take the plants and you put it in a bucket, and then depending on what you're growing and how much water, you flush water through all of your plants once, twice, 3 times a day, whatever you're growing and whatever the requirements are. Some folks who are growing these 10-foot high tomato plants and are making a killing for selling their organic tomatoes. Just go on the internet and check out, organic tomatoes or, my traumatic brain injury memory. The method of hydroponics. Now, I don't have water. I don't have the facilities. I make $1,000 a month on my Social Security, and they cut my Social Security by 1/3. I should get almost $400 more every month, but that's another story. So very limited income. I'm coming out of a serious head trauma injury. I have no help. And so I'm using my own wits and what I got around me to put this together. Now, what I found is that I got a 12-volt pump. It's a bilge pump for a boat. You know, the big boats, they get water too much in them. You turn on the bilge pump, 12-volt, pumps water out. Bum, da, da, da. All right. Well, I don't need to run a lot of water real fast. Well, this thing will pump 390 gallons an hour. I don't have 390 gallons of any kind of liquid right now. Okay. So to be able to turn this thing on and off, and I found at Lowe's they had on sale at the end of the year, just before Christmas time, I go in and scourge around in the gardening section because they get rid of all the old things. Well, I got an orbital, it's a 4-station, plug it into your spigot, and it will turn on 4 different stations to flood your garden, to water your garden, whichever way you want to do it. So with that, okay, so that's 24 volts. Well, it won't open on less. So I've managed to take 2. Wait, was that 12 volts or 24? No, it was 24. Yep. I had to, I took 4 6-volt batteries and put them together. Lantern batteries, you know, regular lantern batteries. And because I didn't need to have a huge battery, and all it needs to do is go click and stay open long enough for the water to go through the valve, and then whatever the timer says, 1 minute, 5 minutes, an hour, whatever, and then go click and release the valve. And it doesn't take a lot of electricity to do it. So a bank of 6-volt batteries will work just fine. Now, I've got other things like the pump. It's a 12-volt pump. However, it will run on 6 volts. It doesn't pump as fast. But again, what I'm trying to do is I've got a 35-gallon drum I'm going to put up high. So I lift water into the 35-gallon drum. Okay. Once it's filled with the nutrients and the water, whatever, that's going to flood my garden with. The second thing is that because it's higher than my plants, all the valve has to do is open, and gravity will take the water out to my plants. So I don't have to carry it. Oh my God, how long it takes to carry. And me getting older, like I said, I'm just not as quick. I got wagons and stuff, but you try watering a 1/4 acre of garden by hand with buckets and stuff on a daily basis. It will stop everything else that you do because you're trying to maintain. Anyway, so I've got my buckets. I went to the dollar store and bought dollar buckets, really nice pails. Build a hole down towards the bottom of it. And so that there will always be a little bit of water in the bottom of the bucket. So the plant, for whatever reason, the battery goes out, the cats knock over something, for whatever reason, the plant will never go dry. But you can never overflood it. So I've got these little overflow holes in these buckets. So each month I bought 10 buckets this month, 10 buckets the next month. So over the course of the spring and summer, I bought my buckets. I also got things that I've been saving, some plastic inserts, plastic pipe things. Anyway, so it's not going to just flood out the hole. It comes out I should have a bucket while I'm talking about this, but anyway, so it drains back down into a system. So it goes back to a collector. Now that collector is lower than the other ones. Okay. Water here, plants here, collector here. So then as it all floods down, collects, then as it goes through its cycle, this pump comes on, pushes the water back up to my other 35-gallon tank, and then it sits there ready. I don't have to worry about whether or not I got to tote any of this water. So I've got a couple of videos that I took. I'm trying to upload them, but YouTube has been so nasty to me. I don't know why, but anyway. So it says I got a viewer, but there's nobody in the chat. And I'm they changed YouTube on me, and they changed this thing that I used to know how to work. And sometimes with my traumatic brain injury, what I learned a month ago, if they change just a small thing, my whole brain goes, I don't understand any of it. It sucks. But so I'm going to be coming back later on, and I've got pictures of my the chickens, my chicken pen, some of the like cheap ways around feeding chickens, for example. Here's a quickie since I'm on it. You know, layer pellets. I used to think that was the only way to feed my chickens. And then one day I was in the feed store and I was talking with an older guy than me. I'm 65 and he was pushing 90. He looked better than me, actually, walking around and stuff. And anyway, he says, son, how long you had them dead chickens? And I was like, well, sir, I've had them, you know, I've been having chickens for the last 30 years. He said, you don't know no better by now. And I was like, no better what? And he goes, well, he was getting horse feed. And so I was like, wow, you're getting horse feed. How many horses you got? And he goes, none. Well, but you got 4 bags of horse feed. He goes, yeah. He goes, but I got chickens and goats. And he said, you see that over there? Now, yeah, that goat feed is twice as much as this is. He goes, layer pellets for a 25-pound bag is $15. I can get a 50-pound bag of horse feed with all these ingredients in it. If it's good enough for a horse, don't you think it's good enough for a chicken? I was like, So I can buy 2 bags of horse feed. Well, not quite. It's $15 and it's like $8 for a 50-pound bag of horse feed. This particular brand I buy. There's nothing wrong with it. Chickens love it. They're healthy as mud. Even the cats eat it. You know, I can feed it to the birds, you know. Now, I don't know if any of it's in GMO. I try not to go there. But I give my chickens bugs. I set up like sort of like a cricket pen. You can lay a board on the ground in the tall grass. Just leave it. And so I put boards around my chicken pen, right? Just flat boards. And bugs will have a tendency to naturally migrate under them. They love to go under a board. So once or twice a week, because I don't try to do it every day. There wouldn't be none there. So, but I lift them boards up. And the bugs that are under there, them chickens will fight through get their heads through the fence, and the bugs will run, and I'll shoo a few of them into the pen. So they get natural protein. You know, oh, chicken ate a bug. Yeah, well, it's a good bug. You know, if they'll eat them, good. But the yolks and the eggs that I got one. I know it's hard to tell, but, you know, I got one that, you know, the egg is like, it's huge. It's huge. It's huge. I grew a couple of my own chickens and bought a few of my own. My best chickens, if you want to buy any, is get the black sex links, is what they're called. Black sex links. Yep. Another one is called an Araucana or Araconda, depending on who's spelling it. Araucana will lay and they get to be a big bird. They're beautiful. Oh my goodness. They lay a teal blue egg. Blue. Whoa. Well, I had some mixed. I had like 40 chickens at one time years ago, and several roosters, and was incubating my own and everything. So I had sex links with Araucanas and Dominickers with Rhode Island Reds, and so we got a mix of a Rhode Island Red with an Araucana, and those eggs were huge. Oh my God. They were like 2 of a normal medium-sized egg from the store. I mean, just really big. So, so if you want to get chickens, Araucana, they're a little harder to find. Black sexlings are very popular. The Rhode Island Reds I got, they do, but their eggs are smaller. But I got to say that after almost 3 years, I got 3 Rhode Island Reds still left. And they are still laying. So yeah, they go through dry spots, but they're still laying. So for a long-term layer, Rhode Island Reds ain't bad. They're a smaller bird, don't eat as much. The black sex lynx, much bigger egg. And I want to say a healthier bird, but I can't. That's not really a correct statement to make. They're not really any healthier. If you have a good chicken pen, and I've got mine aren't stuck in a spot. I keep increasing the size of my chicken pen as much as I can because I hate to cage anything. So they have a lot of free places to run, but it's all caged and it has a roof over it because I've had sitting upstairs looking out my window from my computer room, I can see the chicken pen. A hawk flew in to the chicken pen area where the day area where they come out and play around, pick up a chicken, just do a hop flip up to the top of the fence, and then fly off with that chicken. Now the chicken looked bigger than the hawk, but that hawk took off with that chicken. I've had an owl do the same thing early one morning. The chickens came out into the yard before I could put a top on it. That owl swiped that chicken bigger than snot. I mean, gone. So if you get chickens, you can't just close in the bottom part because the hawks will come in and they'll get them. Not always, but if they're hungry enough, they will. Especially if the hawk feels like there's nothing around him that can get the hawk, and they're smart. I got a pair of hawks that have been living around here for years. So with the aquaponics, that might be it instead of hydro. Anyway, aquaponics, hydroponics. I've got more stuff coming. I might have an older video, but if YouTube don't shut this thing down, it took me 3 days now to fix this back. So I got videos of how I did the buckets, the mediums that I use. I use saffron moss because it's the cheapest medium I can find. There are a lot of people who are buying coconut shell stuff and all kinds of in there. That's expensive. I cannot afford that. I've had tremendous luck, though, in gardening with saffron moss that I mix with my own special mix of chicken manure, some old good black dirt from out back, and I mix it together in a compost, and then I use that for plants. So saffron moss, in my opinion, I'll let you know how this works out. And I've got another thing coming too, is that I've seen that these growers for these aquaponic folks, they're using a medium and they're calling it rock wool. Well, I know what rock wool is. Rock wool is what old houses are insulated with. Now, I've got some old fiberglass insulation, and I want to know why I can't use fiberglass instead of the rock wool, because they're kind of sort of the same thing. So there are folks who have vertical gardens, and they use what's called a W-Y-E. And it isn't a full-fledged Y, it's a short Y. This is a straight pipe, and it cuts off to the side, and it's for drain pipes. You can get them an 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inch. I'm looking at 1.5 inches right now because 2 inches is like big old hole. 1.5 inches, well, okay. And how much space do the roots need? Not much. How much space does the plant need? Not much. So, and the 2-inch pipe is a lot more expensive, really, than 1.5 inches. So at the moment, I'm going to build a vertical garden tree, and we'll see how it goes. Now, I got to be careful because my 12-volt system can only pump up so many feet. So I'm trying to work that out. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and buy another 12-volt sump pump thing. And it's about $30, but it will go 10 feet. It will push 10 feet high, where I think the one I got now will only go like maybe 6 foot. So I've got to be able to pump 10 foot. Not that I'm going to be 10 foot high, but I need to have the ability to be able to push water at least 10 foot up. 6 or 7 probably is all I need. But inside my house here, I don't know if it'll show. I don't know what this will do. But I got a lot of windows. I got my tomato plant sitting right there. And my solar windows in the house. So what I'm in the process of doing is setting up the inside of my house here. Yeah, you can sort of see. Is that my tomato plant you can see there? Yep, I got one tomato there and several others on, and I got some more up here in the window that buds, bloomers. And over in the other corner that's way too dark right now is two other tomato plants that were volunteers. In other words, seeds fell from the tomatoes I planted this year into the ground and made new tomato plants. So that's another thing. If you can get your own tomatoes or whatever you grow, like I got some seeds right down here for some okra I grew. If you can grow garden from your own seeds, it means a bunch of stuff. It means that those seeds that you have, whether, well, they're not GMO, because if they were a GMO seed, they would not grow. So if you get a tomato and you plant seeds and the seeds don't come up, that's the wrong kind of tomato plant. I just got regular old field tomatoes, the old kind, you know, nothing special. I did have some beefsteaks and those came up real well. And I think one of these tomatoes that I do have is seeds from one of those. Now my cherry tomato, they came up good after that, you know, I saved some seeds. So not all tomatoes will grow and not all tomatoes are the best. However, if you want a fresh tomato, then buy one, save some seeds, and see if you can grow it. If it will grow for you, then especially in your area, there's the old timers used to call it you got some hardened, they call them hardened seeds. And what it meant is that the plant that you grew was hardened to the climate, temperature, where you lived, you know, that kind of thing. And so you got some hardened seeds there, boy, they'd tell me. Yeah, them some hardened seeds. That means that no matter how hard it gets where you live, those seeds are probably going to come up rather than buying fresh seeds from whoever. Because they might say, well, they'll grow here. But if those seeds haven't been tested in your soil, in your area, with your wet or drought or whatever, those seeds or those plants have not been hardened. So I have some hardened seeds from several different plants. Some of them, like the mullein plant I got, that I actually swiped a couple of plants from Arkansas about 10 years ago, brought them back, and I have them growing in my garden now. It's natural, used to grow all over down here in South Georgia, but between the pesticides and cleaning up of the hedgerows, mullein don't grow down here no more. It's all over Arkansas and all over some other states. But down here in the South where it used to be, nope. There's no sassafras around here anymore. There are no small cherry trees. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they have done to the ecology down here. Oh, by the way, I do have 2.5 years of forestry, and I graduated with honors, by the way. So I have a lot of history and a lot of information. Now, what has changed, how I used to garden and how I garden now, for whatever reason, I used to be able to grow squash out the yin-yang. I grew 2 squash this year. None the last 2 years. Not one squash made it. Mostly because of squash beetles. However, I'm growing them in a house or in my greenhouse, and because I can control the bugs from getting in and out from there. Yeah. Okay. So this is Hawkeye Two Feathers. David No, down here in South Georgia. I don't know who you are watching. God bless you. And we got to start being nice to one another. I'm not saying that you aren't, but for those if you find somebody that's doing a bunch of name calling, you might go, hey, you know, we don't have to agree. We don't have to love each other and hug and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have to call each other names and be spiteful to one another just because we don't agree. So that's my words of wisdom for today. Whoever you is, please come back. I will have some more videos. I'm going to try to upload some tonight. I took some around the farm these last 2 days, but like I said, YouTube's been giving me the dickens, and I'm going to try to upload them. So God love you. Be safe, and 2018 is going to be a great year. See you on the flip side. Keep it between the ditches, y'all. Love you. Bye.